Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So today we're going to talk to Twitch streamer, analyst and coach Jayne about a huge amount of topics. So much so that this is actually going to be broken down into two videos. The first, today's video, is going to be about how to realistically watch the pros, both in the Overwatch League and on their streams, in an attempt to improve within your own game. And as per usual, you can find all of Jayne's details in the description below. But let us know what you think of the video, like and subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll get straight into it. So I guess the first thing to really start with is introductions. It's the first time that you've been on the channel, Jayne, so give us a brief insight to people that may not know who you are. Because in like the Overwatch University or the competitive Overwatch community, you're well known for coming up with some amazing bits of advice that are actually quite simple.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Ryan. I'm a relatively new educational Overwatch streamer. I stream on twitch.tv/Jayne. And yeah, I've only been streaming for about the last 3 or 4 months, but in that time, I've become rather well known for sharing tips which are deceptively simple, and everyone looks at those tips and they're like, wow, I should have thought of that myself, but, sometimes the simple things are the hardest to learn yourself, so... If you haven't heard of me, that's probably because I haven't been around for very long, but hopefully you hear more of me in the future.
With any luck, you were very keen on talking about the Overwatch League. I feel that it's one of those things that people like and enjoy watching the Overwatch League, but for a main brunt of, especially our audience, they're very keen to get information out of it. If the strategies or meta things, they're keen to know what they can take from the Overwatch League and to their own games regardless of what rank they're on. So I guess that's the sort of like main focus on this video, but why do you think it's important to be looking at the Overwatch League, or like contenders first and foremost, to improve at your own game? Because it's a very different atmosphere compared to like normal ladder games, right?
Yeah, it sure is. You're getting the two kind of people who watch Overwatch League. It's quite frequent that you get people who talk about it, but be like, holy smokes, I saw this in the Overwatch League, I'd never thought about it before. I tried it out, and that's so cool. I really wanted to apply it to my play, and it worked. And then you get the other kind of person who is watching the Overwatch League, and they're looking at it, and there's ultimates going off, and people doing things, and they just have no idea about what is truly going on, let alone how to actually apply that to their play.
But so, I guess for some people that's fine. Like, it's alright to sort of switch off and just watch this. Not everybody watches football or soccer and tries to break down all the play. Sometimes it's just enjoyable to sit back, relax and watch a match.
And if you're one of those individuals who does watch the Overwatch League and, not have the firmest grasp of what's going on, or you don't know why the pros are doing what the pros are doing, then you really shouldn't feel, don't feel bad about yourself. Don't feel anything like that. It can be a complicated esport to watch for the uninformed viewer. However, there's always stuff that happens in these games that you can take and apply to your own gameplay. From the very simple things about how the Overwatch League games or the pro games happen in very discrete team fights. So they're always grouping up as 6, they're always moving together, and they're always fighting one another. The use of their ultimates, where they're fighting, all these little things that you watch can be applied to your own game. However, there's even better ways to actually use the Overwatch League and other high-level Overwatch tournaments to actually improve your play. And the best way for you to do that is to not look at the game as a whole, but to look at the players who are playing in these leagues, and most of them do broadcast their own gameplay when they're not playing professionally on Twitch, on YouTube, or make YouTube videos of their actual gameplay. So if you take a look at the pros who are you seeing on the screen when you're watching the Overwatch League, and then try and find a name you like or somebody who's playing a character that you yourself are trying to learn. If you go and find that person on Twitch or YouTube, you can usually get a first-person perspective of what that individual is doing, both when they're in a tournament and when they're just playing in solo queue. So the same pros that you're watching on the screen play the exact same solo queue mode that you do when you log into Overwatch, and you can see how they handle it. Even when the pros themselves play in solo queue, they very rarely run the exact same strats that you see them showcase in the league itself. Learning Winston, for example. If you're out there listening to this and you're wanting to learn Winston, then, well, you're in luck, because I'm just going to use this as an example. But we have two very large Winston streamers, right? We have XQC, famous for a lot of reasons, and then we have Muma, who still, both of these people receive thousands of viewers on Twitch, and both of them play main tank. And there is benefit to watching XQC, and there's benefits to watching Muma. XQC is a much harder solo carry tank. You know, he likes to be on the front line. He likes to be, just trying to actually win the game based on his own ultimate usage and his own proficient skill. Whereas Muma...
Yeah, Muma just notoriously just doesn't die.
Muma doesn't die. He flanks a lot. He has a lot more team awareness in protecting his healers, and his movement and he's such a cerebral player. It's absolutely a joy to watch. But even then, let's say if you're a grandmaster or a master and you want to learn Winston, these Twitch streamers, these professional players who are also Twitch streamers, would be really good for you to actually watch and learn from. But if you're platinum, gold, or just want to learn for a hero for the first time, what Muma or XQC might be doing on their streams could, probably considered magic. Like, they're going to be doing certain plays, they're going to be going in certain locations, they're going to be using their cooldowns in a certain way, in which probably won't make sense to you, and that's fine. If you are at a lower level where you don't think you can quite understand pro play, or like the flow or the reason why people act the way they do in Grandmaster or Top 500, there are also better options for you to research more or less into how to play those characters.
I guess that kind of goes on to another thing as well, where a lot of the time, if you're in sort of gold, platinum level, and you're watching, to an extent, as you said, a lot of the things that they will be doing will be magic and 9,000 IQ compared to what they know conceptually about the game. But there will also be areas where what in the top tiers you can't simply replicate in your rank. Not just because of you, it could be with your team, the enemy team, all that kind of stuff. So what kind of situations where copying the pros would actually be more detrimental to your team? Like, are there any good examples that you can think of?
Yeah, well, the most common situation that you're going to run into in which what exactly the pros are doing cannot be replicated easily into solo queue, there's two primary situations. And the first one that I would, consider most common would be something as simple as a dive composition. In the pro level, when they play that sort of dive composition, everyone knows exactly what their role is, and they operate together. So the Winston dives the target, the D.Va is protecting that dive, the flankers attack the same target the Winston dove, the healers are protecting each other, so on and so forth. Everyone has their little role in this kind of puzzle that has to fit together in a very specific way. However, more often than not, when you run that exact composition in the solo queue, if you are lucky enough to get, a Genji, Tracer, Winston, D.Va, Lucio, Zenyatta in solo queue, you're not going to be playing those compositions the same way the pros would be doing them. So in an uncoordinated team, there is oftentimes where suboptimal compositions are actually better. So kind of first point, in solo queue, especially below like top 500, you shouldn't worry too much about composition, because the compositions that are considered meta are basically trickled down from the pro level. But as you get farther and farther away from the pro level, the coordination and communication that makes those compositions work slowly deteriorates until it becomes a bastardized version of what the pros actually do. And of course, the unspoken second reason that you can't truly copy what the pros do up at the higher levels is that you have the presence of one-tricks, or people who simply can't flex. Some days you're going to get 5 DPS mains, some days you're going to get 2 Moira one-tricks and a Sim one-trick on your team. In order to climb or be successful in the solo queue environment, you have to have individual value on your character regardless of what the team is doing. So that those same Winston players that you'll see act in the Overwatch League games, they're acting based on knowing that they'll have the D.Va, for example, defense matrixing his jump. But if you watch those same League players play that Winston in a ranked environment, you'll see that they play a lot safer, or dive differently, or use their bubble differently. they will make adjustments based on the team around them and the level of support or follow-up that they're going to receive from the rest of their team. And that knowledge about kind of what level of support they're going to have dictates how they play.
Right, so I guess that goes on nicely to an area of, I think a specific hero has to be mentioned here. Zenyatta. Zenyatta is one of the most staple supports, one of the staple, most impactful heroes within the game at the highest tiers, and is amazing at the highest tiers if you have a good one on your team. However, he's not the easiest hero to pick up in sort of gold and platinum. We'll say around the sort of average SR that people are at. So how do you go about learning a hero that you see in the pros playing a lot? You've got your favorite streamers that you watch. You want to pick up Winston, D.Va, Zenyatta, Tracer is another great example. If you're in a lower tier, how do you realistically look at these plays in the Overwatch League and on their streams and actually learn something? But because just going, I just want to learn and get better at Tracer isn't enough. You need to specifically know where you want to take this hero and what you want to get better at.
So pretty famously, I'm known for being an all trick. So there's the one trick, which is a person who plays one hero, and I consider myself an all trick, somebody who plays all of the heroes, and all of the heroes to a Grandmaster level. This didn't just happen, right? I spent time learning each and every hero, and I've already started learning Brigitte so that when she is released, I'll hopefully be able to get to Grandmaster playing Brigitte as well. But I think before you start worrying about having to watch Overwatch League games that involve the character you're interested in, or before you start watching pros or semi-pro players playing the character that you're interested in, you always need a basic familiarity with your character. So the process that I always used to learn a new hero was I would simply play that hero in deathmatch for a little bit to kind of get used to their cooldowns, get used to how their abilities worked, with what range. You just kind of feel them out to get a very rough understanding of what the character might be capable of. And then you simply play competitive mode. So now this is a pretty controversial statement that I'm about to drop on people, but a lot of people practice in order to perform well in the competitive mode. But for myself and for a lot of high-level players, we consider the competitive mode itself a practice mode. So I think if you are trying to learn a character, it does need to be with a competitive rule set. And this is where second accounts come in, or just having to kind of accept that you're going to drop a little bit of your SR, but that's a story for another time. So you need a basic familiarity of your hero itself, and then at some point you just need to play your character to find out what works and what doesn't. And this is why the competitive rule set is important to learn about the limitations of your hero. You know, you're learning Zenyatta, right? And you're struggling, you're dying to Zenyatta constantly. One of the things you can do is find a Genji player. Do you have a friend who plays Genji in Grandmaster? Or you could go to a Genji streamer on Twitch and you could ask them, you know, don't ask a Zenyatta player, how do you deal with Genji? Ask a Genji player, what makes Zenyatta scary to you? So try and look at it from the perspective of not beating the things that are countering you, but try and look at it from the perspective of the people who are trying to kill you, because they will have a much more intimate knowledge of what exactly is frustrating, difficult to defend against, or effective as a counter against them. And you shouldn't feel bad for not having picked something up. You're always going to have a large number of possible usages for the hero that you're learning that you never even considered. So in the same way that in a competitive match, for example, people may consider switching heroes if whatever they are on is not working, one of the things that higher level players will do before trying to switch heroes is switch playstyles. So, things to think about.
Definitely. And I want to take this on the flip side and talk about a hero like Moira, or any hero that isn't really used in a pro scene, other than the situations that they're just very good on. Moira is the most popular hero in the game currently, yet we don't really see an awful lot of her in the Overwatch League, other than maybe playing with triple or quad tanks on King's Row. But now and again we see her in inklings in different places, so if you're wanting to get better at a hero like her that isn't actually used a lot in the Overwatch League, or more specifically not used all of the time, how do you go about actually trying to take that information, try to find the streamers that play her, and taking that within your own games as well, because it's not detrimental that she hasn't played in the Overwatch League, but it does show that some picks are often better, I suppose.
Moira is not a character that has a large amount of playtime in the Overwatch League because she is supposed to be used for a very specific purpose. And that purpose, as the meta has evolved, has become healing multiple tanks at the same time with her piercing AoE heals. So if you line up 3 or 4 tanks and all of them are missing health, Moira can heal all of them at the same time, vastly increasing her healing output. And it also allows her to get her ultimates ridiculously fast. We're talking 15-20 second ultimates. And that's why the pros run Moira, and it dictates when the pros run Moira. However, in solo queue, you're going to find people who are gravitating towards Moira for a different reason. I cannot stress how important it is to learn the different play styles that that character can accomplish. For example, Moira works extremely well when healing a large number of tanks, but if you only know how to play Moira in that style, it will become extremely challenging for you to play Moira when you run into a composition with 1 tank or no tanks. Because let's be honest, this is competitive. Sometimes we get those 5 DPS games and you're sitting there on Moira and go, hey, can I get a tank? Like, sometimes it just happens. So learning how to play flanking Moira, where you do more of a little bit of a DPS. You know, Moira's really good for healing tanks, but she's also really good at killing flankers, especially people like Genji. So you could go flank, take out their backline, or you could defend against your backline. Not defend again. You could defend your backline against flankers that are attacking you instead of focusing so much on the really heavy output onto the tanks in the front line. So if you are trying to learn a hero like Moira that does not see a lot of play in the Overwatch League, the first and foremost thing that I would suggest to you is not to, just learn one style, but to learn all of the different ways that Moira can be played.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, this is part 1 of a 2-part video series. Next time I'm going to be talking about how to analyze your own gameplay as well as the pros to break down what's actually happening. But until then, do check out all of Jayne's details in the description below. And until next time, take care. We'll see you then.